I've got Boston College on the show, which is very exciting for me. Love Boston College. So I want to have Kayte Hager. Did I say that correctly? Okay. She's an admission officer at Boston College, and I'm going to have her introduce herself. We've got two students here, and I want them to introduce themselves as well. But let's start with Kayte. Tell us a little bit more about like who you are and what you do at Boston College.
Sure. Thanks so much for having us. My name is Kayte Hager. I am an Associate Director of Admission at Boston College. I'm starting my 9th year here in the admission office, also a very proud Boston College alumna. So very happy to represent today. In addition to my typical admission counselor responsibilities of traveling, working with students at high schools, reviewing applications, and working with students as they make their final selection as well, I also oversee our student admission program, which is about 1,000 student volunteers that assist in our office with any type of campus programming and outreach to both prospective and admitted students. So again, just really happy to be here today.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. All right, Theresa, why don't you introduce yourself?
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Hi, my name is Theresa Nestout, and I'm a rising junior, originally from Silver Spring, Maryland. And at Boston College, I'm studying elementary education and applied psychology and human development in the Lynch School of Education and Human Development.
I love an education major. I don't get enough of those these days. So, all right, great. All right, Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Sally. My name is Tyler Dornvier. I'm a rising junior from Winnetka, Illinois, kind of 20 minutes outside of Chicago. I'm studying finance and business analytics in the Carroll School of Management and minoring in computer science. And I've been a part of the admissions program here for about a year now. I worked here in the summer last year, a little bit over the school year, and then I'm working here again in the summer this year.
Okay, great. All right, and that really brings us to our topic, which is should students visit colleges in the summer? But let's start with why it's a good idea to visit colleges, period. So, Kayte, why don't you start, and then you can kind of field it off to the students?
Sure. I think the campus visit is an incredibly important part of the process. I think one that's often overlooked as well. It's obviously important to get a feel for the culture on a campus and to understand kind of the nuts and bolts in terms of academic programs offered, the size, what you might experience as a student. But more importantly, I think really you're discerning a place that you're considering home for the next 4 years. So it's incredibly important to connect with students, to connect with faculty and staff if you can, to see the spaces that you might live, that you might study, that you might eat. So you can really start to visualize yourself on a campus and understand a place that really is the right fit for you personally and for your academic journey as well. Theresa, why do you think the visit's so important from a student perspective?
Definitely. I totally agree with what you said, Kayte, about getting a feel for the campus that you might attend for 4 years, and it has to feel like home. I think what I've learned from working at admissions this past year really has been it's also a great opportunity to get contact information. I have so many visitors that are asking about specific programs, or they're confused about financial aid, or just the application process in general, and it is very stressful. I remember it so vividly. It is a stressful process. But that being said, when you're on the campus, it's so much easier to say, oh, I have this friend who is involved in this program on campus or this club or activity. Let me give you their contact information. And to have that point of seeing the admissions counselor that might be reading your application is huge. And so I think you have that greater opportunity to make those individual connections when you visit a college in person versus just going on their website or perusing or going on Zoom options. So I think that's a real benefit of visiting a college in person.
Absolutely. All right, Tyler.
Yeah. I completely agree with what Theresa and Kayte have talked about. I think that looking online and reading through different college books can be a really fantastic kind of screener for which colleges you want to visit. I think that, if you know what you want to study, you can look online, see which colleges and universities offer those programs, get a sense of the size through those resources. But, right, Boston College is located in Chestnut Hill. That kind of means nothing to you if you're reading that in a book. you really have to come to the area, see the campus, see the surrounding community. Right, we're located in near Boston. If you're not from the Boston area, you have no idea if you're going to like Boston or not. So I think that it can be a fantastic screener, but to really see the area, engage with the students, I think it really adds a layer um, um, of just kind of immersion, which can be
Mhm.
really valuable when choosing where you want to spend the next 4 years.
Mhm. What would you say to a student who says, "Well, I'm really flexible, so it doesn't really matter if a school is urban or suburban or huge or small or medium, like I'm going to be good no matter what." Like what would the two of you say to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, someone can kind of think that. And I think that there are students that are going to be more, flexible in that sense. But I think that there's kind of a right place for everyone. I think that there's a place that students will kind of thrive in more than another one. I think that, often, I mean, I'll say, myself, for example, I was really kind of one of those kids. I thought, I think I'll do kind of well wherever I go. I just want to go somewhere that has the right programs for me. But then when you're visiting the school, you pick up on things that you didn't even think about. I didn't, I wasn't sure if I really wanted a college campus first, and I liked the idea of a city, and then I came here and I'm looking around. I was like, all right, this actually is kind of nice. This might be something that I want. So I think that you might, think you're flexible at first, and you might be flexible, but it's difficult to really make that decision and know that until you've actually visited these different colleges and visited a college campus, visited a college in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with what Tyler said. I think when I was visiting Boston College, I always think back to this visit because I came with 20 other students from my high school and a college counselor. And we were doing all of the Boston schools in the area. And I really had no idea what schools in Boston looked like. All I knew is that they were all supposed to be amazing. And there are a lot of amazing schools in Boston. But as I was visiting each one, as Tyler was saying, you kind of get a feel for the nuance of each university. And so I was walking on some that were more urban, and I was like, I don't want to have a crosswalk on my college campus. Like, I want an actual quad. And I think those are things you don't think about when you're just reading about different colleges. But then when you're actually there, I think when you're on the visit, you get this feel for, oh, is this making me happy? Can I imagine myself walking this campus every day? Is this a farther walk than I was expecting from building to building, from residence hall to the classroom space? Those are different things that you don't get a feel for when you're just on the website. And it all can seem like narrowing things into urban or suburban or rural are just categories. Even in those categories, there's such different elements of each college campus that you're not seeing when you're not on the actual campus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about summer visits. How are they different? What are sort of the pros and cons? Let's go ahead. Theresa, why don't you just keep going?
Definitely. When you first posed that question, I was thinking students are more excited and engaged, I think, especially when you come to a school like Boston College. We're here for the summer. We're choosing to spend our summer on campus, giving tours and information sessions, and we're not taking classes. So I think the energy on campus, even though students might not be packing all of the different academic buildings or on the quads, the students that you will be interacting with are very much engaged, and this is their job, and they're very attentive. It also allows you to really see into buildings and see into classroom spaces a lot more versus a tour during the academic year. For myself, I take my tours into classrooms and let them see the cafeteria spaces on campus. And I can't really do that as much during the academic year because I can't disrupt classes and I don't want to make people move when they're eating lunch with a friend. So I think you get to see more of the hidden gems that are located around campus over the summer compared to during the academic year.
Mm-hmm. I love that you're highlighting the positives here. Like a lot of people think summer is not a good time to visit, but you're showing that there are actually things that are better than during
Mm-hmm.
the school year. Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, right. The obvious difference is there's a lot less students on campus,
Mm-hmm.
which I think can be a little bit of a negative. I know I did visit most of my colleges during the school year. I like to see the interactions between different students. I think often when students kind of knew that BC was their top choice, sometimes it wasn't even the interactions with the admission staff. It was that they were walking on campus. They didn't know where Devlin Hall is. That's our admissions office. And they love that just a random student would walk them all the way there. So I think that you are sometimes missing out on some of those interactions. I agree that there are also positives, though. Definitely what Theresa was talking about, really the student admissions, right? We have access to the entire campus right now. So I can take my tour wherever they want to go. I think another benefit to it is the access to the students that are on campus. If I'm giving a panel or a tour during the school year, I typically do it like right in between classes. So I'm running up to Devlin Hall 5 minutes before my panel. And then my panel gets out, I'm sprinting to my next class. Whereas here, I talk in a panel and I'll often have families come up to me after saying, right, I'm in our business program. A student can come up, I'm interested in business. Can you talk to me a little bit about that program? Then I'm happy to spend, 15, 20 minutes just going into my experience with the program, different things that I'm involved in. And so I think that although there are less students on campus, the ones that are on campus, you really have unlimited access to because, we're paid to be here all day talking about the school and we're happy to do it. So.
Yeah, Katie, do you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is I think sometimes an academic year visit can be incredibly overwhelming for a student and their family if it's the first time visiting a campus of our size with such diversity in terms of academic programs and 9,300 students buzzing all around. So in some ways, I think a summer visit is a good opportunity to kind of provide an introduction to the college visit, right? To arrive and be able to park on campus without students everywhere and find Devlin Hall or the admissions office successfully without that stress kind of hanging over your head. So I do think an academic year visit is important before you make a choice, right? When you're really in that final stages of your decision-making process. But I think a summer can be a really nice introduction to a community.
Good. Yeah, I feel the same way. And I used to supervise actually the campus visit program at Whittier. And it was the same as what, all of you are discussing, where I mean, my students had all the time in the world. We had other things for them to do if a visitor wasn't there, but the top priority was always, always, always the visitors. So, you could take an hour and a half tour if the visitor was interested. So, all right, great. So I think it's pretty clear why they are worth it, even if school is in session. How though? I mean, there is the downside, as you mentioned, Tyler, of just that there aren't other students on campus. So how do you account for that when you're walking students around the campus, et cetera? Like, how do you try and kind of paint the picture of what the campus might be like? How lively? Because I know that students when they go to a campus, they want something lively. And as beautiful as Boston College is, it's just not going to be that same kind of lively. It's less stressful as a result, but it's going to be super lively during the school year. It's not going to be that lively during the summer. So yeah, how do you account for that?
Yeah, I can take this to start. For me, I try to tell a lot of stories on my tours. I think that can sometimes kind of capture the spirit of what Boston College is, of the student body that is missing. I also think that sometimes, some of that also falls to the people who are visiting, and that I think it's important. It's really easy when the campus is full to notice these kind of different interactions between the student body because you're walking around and you're seeing, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And I think it's really important. My advice would be if you are visiting in the summer, to really pay attention to how the different, student worker, student admissions staff, right? How they interact together, how they interact with the admissions staff. Is it more of uh, kind of an academic feel? Is it more of just having fun, having a good time feel? Because I think that often that can give insights into just the general culture of the student body and the university or college as a whole.
I,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to build off of that point, I think too, the questions that you can ask can change during the summer experience. You can talk a little bit more about what it's like to be a student. What does a day in the life look like for you on campus? Those are some questions that you can ask your tour guide to kind of see, even though they're not surrounded by 9,300 other students, to see what the day in the life of their experience might be during the academic year, to say, how do you balance your time during the year? you go into the city of Boston frequently? All of those things. So like kind of changing the questions maybe from what majors do you offer to more like reflective questions can kind of allow you to get insights into the experiences, even though it might not be during the academic year.
Yeah, ask those questions. There's so many students who are shy, or I noticed they would get really mad at their parents if their parents would ask like a perfectly reasonable question, you know? So, all right, so we're going to take a break in a minute, but Kayte, I was wondering if you had anything you wanted to kind of wrap up this question with.
I think as someone who advises the students, we encourage this regardless of the season. But like Tyler and Theresa both mentioned, I think storytelling is really powerful. So, my hope is that when you visit campuses, you'll ask the questions that will provoke answers that are really specific. Instead of asking, what's the average class size? You ask what it's like to engage with faculty members, so that maybe your student tells you a story about their favorite faculty member and you can start to really picture yourself in the classroom on campus. I think that's even more critical in the summer than it is during the academic year.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break, but and we will be back in just a couple of minutes.